All right, leftover content. Some of the most important lessons I have to teach you are part of this last class, and I want to thank you for your time, your dedication to this course, and I want to congratulate you that yeah, we are actually in the home stretch right now. Okay, so you are here. You've made it to the end of the course. Congratulations, and thank you. Okay, so we're going to talk about leftover content, stuff that I haven't covered before that I think is very important to cover. And the first thing we're going to talk about is making a term sheet. Now, you're going to have a lawyer do all of your legal documents, but what happens is before you deal with an equity investor that's going to invest in your company, they're going to give you what's called a term sheet. And a term sheet is a non-binding 10-page document that lists the basic terms, and you have to agree to it, and your investors do as well. And then once you both agree, then the lawyers create all the paperwork for the investment. And so you can actually create your own term sheet for free. And there's an amazing resource on the internet. And there's a great law firm here in the Bay Area that a lot of venture capital firms and startups deal with, and big companies, called Wilson Sonsini. And you can just do a search on the web on Wilson Sonsini term sheet maker or WSGR term sheet maker. And basically what happens is there's 47 different screens that you can walk through, right, which will help you create a term sheet. And so in this example, we'll use the Giancarlo, who's that, remember the guy from Miami, that great baseball player, the best athlete? His Giancarlo Stanton's payment systems company, his POS firm, or point of sale firm. And we're going to set it up in this example here. Please look at the screen as a Delaware corporation because it's cheaper and more beneficial from a tax perspective to do so. Then we click on the next screen and eventually it'll ask you, well, what round is this? Well, it's the A round. Okay. And then eventually after 47 screens, a PDF is created and it lists all the terms in this hypothetical example, everything you need to know. So you can create this whole term sheet process and deal with all the complicated structures of setting up securities. Are they preferred or common or converts or all that stuff? And what happens as you walk through this wizard-driven technology, the 47 steps, the amazing thing about this term sheet creator, which is free, is that if you don't understand what a term means, you can click on it and it'll explain it to you in layman's terms. It's an awesome resource. Okay, let's move on to the most important investment you will ever make in your life. And that investment is you. Please don't ever be cheap when it comes to education. Invest in yourself. I'm a voracious reader or audiobook user. You always have time to read. And if you don't have time to sit down and physically read a book, you can join audible.com. And it's an amazing service. It's $15 a month. It's Amazon service. And basically you can listen to one awesome audiobook per month. And so I love listening to inspirational audiobooks, rags to riches stories of incredible entrepreneurs. I love their stories. I recently listened to Richard Branson's latest book. And I love how optimistic he is. And it really drives me. And my dad told me when I was a kid, don't ever take advice from anybody that's not successful. As a result, in addition to taking advice from him, he's very successful. He's my idol, my hero. I also get advice from these incredible entrepreneurs through biographies. I listen to a lot of biographies. I listen to podcasts as well from very successful people. I take night courses every now and then. If you're going to go back to school and do an MBA, and if you want to get into an MBA program, there's a course I made on how to get into business school. It'll tell you the easy way to get it if you need it. You don't need it though. In all cases, you only need it if you want to change careers, to be honest. But don't be cheap. If you want to get that advanced degree, find a way to make it happen. Don't be cheap. Don't be cheap when it comes to investing in yourself. You're the most important investment you'll ever make. And the Dalai Lama had this incredible quote, which really resonated with me. He wrote this great book called The Art of Happiness, which I love. And it talks about how people in Western society, they focus so much on making money that they sacrifice their health for their entire life to make money. And then at the end of their life, they sacrifice all of their money to maintain their health. And then they look back upon their life and realize they've never really lived. And so invest in yourself when it comes to sleep, 7 or 8 hours a night. Exercise every day. You do have time. You do have time. So what I do every day is when I exercise on the elliptical trainer after work, I read my iPad. If I have to read or do emails after work, I'm going to do it at the gym. So that's an investment in myself as well. So the most important investment you'll ever make is you. Okay, next up we got a company is only as good as its customer service. And I really believe this. If you look at Amazon, which is one of the best companies in the world, Amazon has got the best customer service ever. If you order a product and it arrives late, you can complain. Or if it never arrives, you just tell them. They'll never question you ethically. They'll just send you another product immediately in the mail. A company is only as good as its customer service is. And, I look at other great companies like Google and how transparent they are. And Salesforce as well, and how great they are with customer service and transparency. And I really admire those companies because transparency builds trust. It's an ethical issue. And so Salesforce actually has a website up which tells you in real time which one of their servers are down. Okay, it's a trust website. Google has a website, and Google has a lot of self-driving cars here in the Bay Area. There's real people behind the wheel just in case. But they actually report on a monthly basis. You can just Google this. They report on a monthly basis all the accidents they've had, if any. And so transparency is really important from a customer service perspective. But again, a company is only as good as its customer service. And the poster child of this certainly is Amazon. Next up, you have to be long-term greedy. When I worked at Goldman Sachs years ago, they didn't hire the smartest people at Goldman Sachs, which is how I got the job. They actually hired people that got along really well with each other, and people that were kind of long-term focused. And they taught me at Goldman to be long-term greedy. And I never really understood this until recently. And, I've read a lot about how Warren Buffett invests. And, he always said that the longer the view, the wiser the intention. And so you need to be long-term focused. You want to add as much value as you can to your customers. The customer's always right. And in the long run, you'll win more business if you have that belief. Another reason you want to be long-term focused is because when you invest in companies, you want to think like the entrepreneur, like the founder. And founders are very long-term focused, right? The best founders don't care about quarterly numbers. Jeff Bezos couldn't give a damn about quarterly numbers. He cares about long-term market share, right? And long-term dominance, or the ability to disrupt different markets. So start thinking like a founder when you invest in these companies. Don't think short-term, think long-term. Very, very, very important. And you also want to have a long-term gap analysis of your life, from a professional perspective. You want to kind of pick 10 years from now and where you think you should be professionally at that point. That's a long-term target. And don't set your goals conservatively. Set them high, and then set them higher, right? And then what you do is you try to fill that gap. Right? It's called a gap analysis. How do I get there? Right? How do I get there? And you'll start achieving your dreams by thinking longer term. And I love talking to very successful people. And every time I meet a successful person, I ask them why they're successful. And I wrote a book about this called 101 Crucial Lessons They Don't Teach You in Business School. And basically, one of the cool lessons I got from one conversation I had with a successful person is that they love getting criticized, successful people. Because when you become successful and you think very long term, people are going to criticize you because they're jealous. And I love this quote. Check this out. Unjustified criticism is a disguised compliment. So bring on the doubters. Bring it on. Be long-term focused always. Next up, wealth equals health plus gratitude and happiness. I've met a lot of people that are children of billionaire parents. And for the most part, a lot of them are absolutely miserable. You don't ever want to make money, you're idle. You want to focus on wealthy people being healthy people, being grateful and being happy. And so, as you can see by the graphic here, some people are so poor, all they have is money. Don't make money your idol. Don't do that. Don't do that. And never go into business or start a career because of money. You'll be miserable, man. It's just not worth it. Life's too short. Do what you love doing, right? Do what you love doing. Steve Jobs, he dropped out of Reed College, right? He didn't have a degree. Neither did Bill Gates, neither did Mark Zuckerberg. Degrees are not too important. They open a lot of doors for you, which is cool, whatever, from a networking perspective. But the most successful people I've ever met love what they do. They're so passionate about what they do. And it's never about the money. It never is. It never is. And if it becomes about money, then the only thing that's satisfying to those people is giving it away. Wealth equals health plus gratitude plus happiness. Turnarounds don't work in technology. We talked about this quite a bit. When a company goes into secular decline, especially in technology, the odds of the company turning around is basically 1 in a million. One turnaround in tech works per decade. And I mentioned before that IBM was a successful turnaround in the 90s. And you can read the book I mentioned by Lou Gerstner, who says elephants can't dance, on how we did it. And of course, Apple had a great turnaround last decade, only because the founder came back. But when a technology company goes into secular decline, don't chase that investment, right? Cut your losses immediately. If it's a publicly traded company, sell it, right? If you decide that that company is going to be less relevant in 5 years than it is today, sell the company, right? If you think more people are going to search using Yahoo in 5 years than Google, then you know what to do with that stock. Otherwise, do the opposite. Turnarounds don't work in technology. Success equals Apple's simplicity plus Intel's paranoia. I love this. Apple is incredibly successful because of the simplicity of its products. Remember the old days when we were using computers and we used to hit the F1 key for help? If you have to read the instructions on any product or service, then that's not a product or service worth buying. The best products are simple. Less is more with Apple products, right? And success is not just a combination of Apple's simplicity, but also Intel's paranoia. What do I mean by that? Well, Andy Grove, who was the CEO of Intel, and just a heroic icon in Silicon Valley, he wrote this amazing book. It was a masterpiece. You should read it. It's called Only the Paranoid Survive, right? And he talked about how he and his company at Intel were always very paranoid. And the only reason that they were successful is because they believed that other people were going to, or other companies were going to take market share away from them. And he dealt with paranoia beautifully. You can read the book if you want more details on that. It's called Only the Paranoid Survive. But success equals Apple's simplicity plus Intel's paranoia. I love that. Superb marketing beats great products. Okay, and there's the great Muhammad Ali, who is the best self-promoter in history. Love that guy. And you'll see a couple of icons on his hands there of great companies that had amazing marketing campaigns historically. Microsoft had great marketing campaigns before the founder left, when Bill Gates was still there. And then, Phil Knight at Nike had incredible marketing as well. And the same can be said for Apple, of course, now. And so the best companies are not the ones with the best products, right? Usually it's the ones with the best marketing. So I'll give you a great example. So there was the head of sales and marketing at Microsoft years ago, a guy named Steve Ballmer, who eventually became CEO. And he worked for Bill Gates at Microsoft. And in between Harvard and Stanford Business School, where he dropped out, I think, he worked at Procter & Gamble. And he was a product manager on the Duncan Hines cake mix box, which you can see in the picture in front of you there. And he basically took that product from number 3 in market share to number 1 in the world market share, Duncan Hines, when he worked at Procter & Gamble. And the way he did it was he used marketing tactics. He made the box bigger than the competition. And so if you buy Duncan Hines cake mix today, you'll realize that half the box is empty, right? It's just marketing. And interestingly enough, Microsoft Windows dominated in the 80s and 90s because they had great marketing. That was one of the reasons. In fact, if you look at the size of a Windows 1.0 box or Windows 3.1 or Windows 95 or Windows 98 or Windows Millennium, all those boxes were the same size as the Duncan Hines cake mix box. So superb marketing beats great products. And Nike kicked ass with marketing back in the 80s. I don't know if they had the best products, but they had superb marketing. Remember the Bow Nose baseball, the Bow Nose golf, Bow Nose hockey campaign. Loved it. Superb marketing always beats great products. Less is more in business. We've covered this one over and over and over again. But one of Abraham Lincoln's early speeches, which you can see written behind him on the wall, was only a couple hundred words. And in business, in this day and age, Twitter is very successful because you can say a lot in as few words as possible. And so less is more in business always. Try to think of it this way. When you write an email to somebody or a text, try to pretend that each word you write costs you $100. Now, with that in mind, you'll make sure that less is more when you communicate. Timing is crucial in business as well. And this is the last time I promise I'll mention Wayne Gretzky, who's the greatest athlete in history, greatest hockey player ever. I'm Canadian, of course, I have to say that. But we loved Wayne Gretzky growing up. And I'm going to repeat a quote of his, which I mentioned earlier on this course, which is, Wayne Gretzky was very successful because he didn't skate to where the puck is. Rather, he skated to where the puck is going to be. He had the foresight of knowing the right timing. And so if you're a technology company, for example, and you time the market wrong, you can destroy a lot of shareholder value. Apple's a great company, but they were way too early with the Newton, a couple of years too early. And then Palm Pilot took off. Another great example of this is YouTube. When Yahoo bought broadcast.com from Mark Cuban for about, $4 or $5 billion, whatever it was, in the late 90s, that could have been YouTube for Yahoo, but they were too early. Yahoo also spent a lot of money on a company called GeoCities at that same time. That was a social networking site. That could have been Facebook, but their timing was off. And so I've had the privilege and opportunity to have Andy Bechtolsheim as a keynote speaker at a couple of my venture capital events. And Andy, for those of you that don't know of him, is probably the most successful entrepreneur in the history of Silicon Valley. He was the first employee at Sun Microsystems. He was one of the founders of Arista. He was the founder of DSSD, or co-founder there. Anyway, the bottom line is he's never failed in his entire life at starting a company. And I had the opportunity recently at a Kleiner Perkins holiday party to ask him why he's successful. And he's very humble. But he said that timing is the most important factor. Timing is crucial in business.